How you doing? Welcome to Q&A. It's Friday, 21st of June. Every Friday, you're going to find me here. If you're watching this, incidentally, it means that you're part of the community and you should know that it's not going anywhere else. This video, which supports the writings from this week, is exclusively for the Peak Performance community space. And every week I'll be here, record a new short clip on the topic of the week. So this week I was talking about um, managing persistent negative thoughts about ourselves, about somebody else, about a given situation. Maybe we're angry and uptight and stressed out, and we're arguing with someone incessantly inside our own mind, even though they're not in front of us, or we're paralyzed with fear about the presentation that we have to make next week. Or maybe we know we're meeting Mary or John or whoever it happens to be, and our relationship with them hasn't been great recently, and we're thinking about it, and we anticipate more of the same tomorrow. Now, most of us think, most of us experience this type of thinking. It's automatic, it just occurs. And I would argue that most of us find a way to cope with that in a reasonable way. But while it's there, it's difficult. And even if you have managed to find a means of coping with that and a reasonably healthy way, it's still disturbing. And we wish that we didn't think, we wish that we didn't have these thoughts. And oftentimes we project the blame onto somebody else. And maybe that somebody else is to blame. Maybe they're just a nasty individual. And in that case, we just have to get out of there. It's just terminate the relationship, end the story. But oftentimes we have to try and manage our relationships and manage our own thoughts around those relationships. Relationships with bosses, with spouses, with children, with neighbors, and so on. And this persistent negative thinking around a given situation or a given person can happen when we're not even with them, or we're not. It can happen today if I'm thinking about the event tomorrow, or it can happen in 10 minutes time because I know I have to meet Mary from up the road about something, and really I don't really get on with Mary, and so when I think about Mary, I think about all the negative situations I've had with her before, and I enter into this imaginary scenario that when I meet her in a few minutes time or tomorrow or next week, it's going to be exactly the same. And it doesn't have to be, because if you think about it, if you're sitting here in the privacy of your own home and you're obsessing about someone, either you're arguing with them incessantly in your own mind, or maybe even you're fighting with them physically, or maybe you're cowering in fear at the anticipation of having to meet this person tomorrow, well, then you're doing all that inside your own mind, in the comfort of your own home, with no threats, with no threats to your person or to your home or whatever. So when you realize that, when you think about that, you go, hang on a second, this is first of all, it's unhealthy, and secondly, maybe I don't have to think this way. Maybe that was the situation yesterday or last week or last month, but does it necessarily have to be the situation tomorrow? Maybe the fact that John or Mary gets angry with me says more about them than it does about me. Maybe because my boss in work seems intolerant, it's because he can't manage himself or his time or his workload. Maybe he's completely stressed out. Maybe he has a sick child. Maybe Mary has a husband who gives her a hard time. Maybe she's under pressure financially. And when you begin to entertain the hypothetical, entertain the possibility of another reason or another set of circumstances that exist beyond, what you experience, there's the opportunity to let that person off the hook. Begin to realize, well, actually, hang on a minute. Maybe it's not about me. Maybe it's more about them. And just because the situation played out the way it did yesterday or last week, it doesn't mean that it has to play out the same tomorrow. So as I sit here alone in my room and I think about it, maybe I have a choice. And that's a really important word, maybe. But, however, those words kind of leaves the door open for a possibility. So I like to use them a lot. If you read my stuff, you've been reading for a while, you'll see I use them, because to not use them implies something concrete. I'm such a bad person. I'm so stupid. I shouldn't have done that. What an idiot. Do you see what I mean? But if you use however, but, and so on, maybe there's an opportunity for another set of circumstances to exist, or at least to soothe yourself a small bit and give yourself a chance to behave differently, and maybe give someone else a chance to behave differently. And I know this might seem like hard work, but if we don't begin to entertain the hypothetical, if we don't begin to maybe see the world from someone else's perspective, well, then the world begins to solidify around us and becomes immovable, and our own lives become immovable. So the worksheet that I shared with you this week in the article on Peak Performer talks to this idea, or provides you with a possible solution. Now, sometimes it's not so easy to implement these things, and I get that. Maybe this material will help you. Think of this as a private session, because this is how I engage in conversation with the people who come to see me, to try and help them see an alternative reality, because oftentimes we get so sucked into our own ideas of the world that we fail to see the truth. And the truth is, there are so many perspectives and possibilities that it can't possibly be concrete. Right. So I wanted to share this document with you today and just run through it really quick. No, actually, I should say, and this is really important, I'm not asking you to deny the reality of your experience. I'm not asking you to deny how you feel. Lots of people think maybe if you were asking people to change the thoughts that they think, they have to ignore all of this. But all of this is a speeding train. And if you don't find a way to slow it down, and you slow it down by using words like however, but, if, and so on, right? Because that allows us another possibility to get the picture. So all of this that we're trying to ignore is a speeding train. And if we don't slow it down, it's going to crash. So if, but, however, and so on helps us slow the train down, entertain the hypothetical, entertain an alternative possibility. And that's what this tool is about. So let me share that with you now. We'll see how this goes. Okay, you should be able to see that. So this document is available in the article that I posted this week. Let me just adjust this a little bit. All right, that'll have to do. All right, so this is it right here. I know what I'll do. I'll do this. That's much better now. Okay. This lad on the front, thoughts running rampant in his mind. You'll see this the worksheets that I create follow this format. They all follow the same format or design. All right, so at the start of it, there's a bit of an introduction to my work for those who are not familiar, contact details, and then there's a bit of commentary around the power of words, but they don't exist on their own. It's words and feeling, thought, words, feeling, experience. It's like it works in a cyclical pattern. Another analogy you might, I know I spoke about the thoughts, the automatic thoughts that are running rampant in our mind is they're like a speeding train. They're also like a broken record, jump it, spinning around. And unless we find a way to get out of that negative pattern, that negative loop, it'll just keep repeating itself. So it's just another analogy we can use. So a little bit of commentary on the power of words. The exact same process, 3-step process for breaking down those negatively oriented thought patterns, slowing them down and reversing, and finding ourselves in a better place to soothe ourselves. The first being, find a quiet place where you can be by yourself, where there are no threats, where there are no interruptions, and begin to talk to yourself. And if you can do that out loud, well, then that's great. And remind yourself of the safety of the space that you're in, and the reality of the fact that there are no threats, and that those people that you don't like to be around, that maybe you feel threatened by, are of no current threat. And so perhaps you can begin to feel a little bit calmer, begin to settle down a small bit. You can write down these observations as well, which helps. Taking your thoughts and putting them to paper helps diffuse them. A lot of people find that helpful. Second, you got to try find a way to separate yourself from the thought. Instead of telling yourself, I am angry, I am afraid, you can alternatively suggest that you feel this way, that you feel anxious, you feel afraid, you feel angry. In the Irish language, we say, if I'm hungry, I say tá ocrasorum, and the literal translation of tá ocrasorum, or tá faragorum, which is I'm angry, the literal translation of that is there is anger on me, there is hunger on me. So rather than owning the feeling is something besides me, if you know what I mean. So language can be powerful in that sense, that it allows you to separate from the emotion and allow you have the experience but not deny it. Okay. So instead of I am afraid, I am anxious, I am angry, and so on, you can say I feel angry, or there's anger on me, right? And then finally, entertain a new possibility, an alternative. Use but, however. So I'm angry, I'm afraid, I'm anxious, but I know tomorrow there's a chance for it to be better. I know next week when I meet John, it doesn't have to be as difficult as it was before. I wonder if it could be different. I wonder if maybe the last time we met, he was under pressure and he had a lot on his mind. And I know when we have a lot on our mind, we become frayed and our patience are thin. And maybe that's what the problem was. Maybe it wasn't anything to do with me. Do you see what I mean? And so you begin to diffuse it, use but, however, and so on, to leave the door open to another possibility. Sometimes we need help with this process, but this is a good starting point. Some important things to consider when we take on this cognitive restructuring is not to deny how you feel, because how you feel is an indicator of how fast that train is running. And you just ignore it or try to hide from it, that train is going to keep speeding and it'll eventually crash. If you're in a bad situation or toxic relationship, sometimes the only answer is to get out of there. Cut those ties, because you're never going to change that person. If you have enough experience of that individual and their negativity and their abuse, well then there's no amount of positive thinking is going to change that situation. You need to get out of there. And finally then, it can be difficult on your own. So if you need someone, reach out to me, reach out to someone that you know, reach out to your GP or physician or whatever and seek some help. And that's all I've got for you this week. There is a little chart here that you can use to begin to write down the negative thought that you happen to feel or think, that happens to think, or that happens to occur to you. All right. There's a difference, subtle difference in the weight of the meaning of those words, the thoughts that you think or the thoughts that occur to you. Okay, think about it in that form. And then you can replace it with an alternative, more positive thought that might help you. Also, some commentary on positive psychology and self-talk and how it's used, cognitive restructuring, self-compassion, strength-based approaches, gratitude, and positive affirmations. And then some notes for yourself here. If you haven't got one already, I'd encourage you to get a little black book like this. I have a bunch of them here. I sometimes give them to clients. They're not dated. They're just ruled on the inside. They're plain little journal books. You get them on Amazon for a couple of quid. And begin to write down the thoughts and feelings that you have. It can also help you diffuse those. Okay, so that's all I have for you this evening. Hopefully that was helpful, help reinforce the material from during the week. I'm going to go and have a cup of tea and I'll see you next week around the same time. All right. All the best for now. Mind yourselves.